Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Kosher 2.0. I just want to thank Hashem for all of his help and just tremendous insights that he gives to me every day. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to kind of, and in classic Kosher 2.0 style, we always try to look at things from a Torah perspective. And this time, we're actually going to mingle this week's Parsha, which is Vayigash, along and take it really more from a Kosher 2.0 perspective on one of the statements that, in my opinion, again, if you followed me for a while, I always say, every Parsha is my favorite, every holiday is my favorite, because there's always new insight, and every year you change. And if you know me well enough, I really like to not just listen to what's being said in the Parsha, because everything is so profound, but I really like to put into practice. But, if you've been around the block a few times like I have, and you're, I'm not the oldest kid on the block, but certainly I've had my time at the rodeo, that every year you're different and you change, life changes you, things you've gone through change you, the way that you interact with Hashem also changes, and hopefully it's for the good. And hopefully you're growing in a way that is productive to your life. And it's not something where you're being stuck. I put a post maybe, I don't know if it was a few weeks or a few months back about like the elephant chains. And sometimes, when we get caught up in these moments in time that really have the ability to just wreak such catastrophe in our life, and some of us sometimes, I think, we find it very difficult to move past that situation, and it just seems to be like, constantly nagging at you. And there's a statement really in this week's Parsha, and if anybody who's ever gone and been in the rodeo of any kind of depression, or an extreme sadness, if you've gone through an emotional trauma or physical trauma, if you've ever been in that place, and those of you that are suffering, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, it's a deep place. It's a deep, dark place where you cannot see the light. You cannot see the light. And when you're in the throes of a depressive attack, you barely have the energy to give yourself water, let alone, fight mentally to get yourself to really be a mensch and pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And there's something in this week's Parsha that really it was so profound, it resonated with me so much. And really, the commentaries, believe it or not, is kind of what brought me to prompted me to kind of go into this through a Kosher 2.0 perspective. Now, again, like I've said, if you've ever followed my Kosher 2.0, if you're new to Kosher 2.0, and if you're on YouTube, there's only a certain amount of classes on there. But if you're part of the broadcast over the summer, you'll know I did a series, and I think one of them is on YouTube, in which we go on. I think it was under Flower Remedies, and when you're talking about this kind of ailment, and I'm going to say ailment, I'm not going to call it a disease or what, because this is something it's hard to believe, but you can get it under control, but it takes a lot of work. But this kind of ailment is something that takes, it's not like, I have an AFib, right? And you can hit that through, a physical kind of way. When you're dealing with any kind of depressive issues, you really have to go through it through a two-part process. It's not just the physical aspect that has to be addressed. You can do the physical all you want, but if you're never addressing the problem, it's like it's like putting a Band-Aid on a really bad cut, and it's only gonna do so much before it's incapable of doing what of closing up the wound. So I mean, I remember there was a time when I was starting to go through my own midot, it's I like to describe it as, when you're say you're on a plane, and the plane is going down, Has v'shalom, and you've crashed into the water, and lo and behold, you survived, right? and you're treading water just to survive. You're in survival mode. But then there comes this point where you've reached the land and you're still treading water, and you've not realized that you've hit the land. So what ends up happening? You end up literally digging yourself into a hole. And there comes a point where you have to make a decision whether you're going to keep being in the survivor mentality, or you're going to say, I got to get up and I got to get out of this hole and I'm going to overcome this. And it's those people who decide, I'm going to overcome this with Hashem's help. They are much more successful in having the long-term ability to not only get past what's happened, whatever that trauma is, but to kind of process future. Because we all know, especially the longer you've been on this earth, the longer you know, it's a cold, cruel world out there. We're just trying to make it a better place. And if especially if you're a Jew, right away, the Yisurim just comes with the deal. That's the deal. And if you did a study with it, Yisurim doesn't come to beat you. It really comes to make you grow. But I think a lot of us, we get stuck in a particular place. And so I want to go back just to what the statement that really, really just illuminated to me during this Parsha. And it's just a few lines, and it says, Then Joseph brought Yaakov, his father, and stood before Pharaoh, and Yaakov blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Yaakov, How many are the days of the years of your life? And Yaakov said to Pharaoh, The days of the years of my sojourns have been 130 years. Few and bad have been the days of the years of my life, and they have not reached the days of the years of the lives of my forefathers in the days of their sojourns. And Yaakov blessed Pharaoh, and he left Pharaoh's presence. Now, there's a few play on words here. And I don't know if anybody caught, the fact that Yaakov blessed Pharaoh twice. And we're not going to get into any of that because that, that's not, I want to stay within the scope of the point of this whole broadcast today. But here we go. Pharaoh's basically asking, dude, how old are you? Right? And, Yaakov is saying, I'm 130 years old, and, my days have been few and they've been bad. And, can you really blame Yaakov? I mean, let's really acknowledge it. He's really gone through the ringer. It almost seems like he's expressing that he's not dealt with his years and his sojourns, which is different than the days of your lives. That's another play on the words here. But he's kind of, hinting also that maybe he feels that he has not himself dealt with all of these things, perhaps as well as perhaps his father and his grandfather may have. So, as a result of this, commentators say that Yaakov did not reach the 180 years that his father had reached. And it was due to the fact of this specific statement. And for every, word that came out of his mouth, a year was taken off. Now, if you do the math, there's a discrepancy because Yaakov only says, but X number of years, which would make it that he could have lived a little bit longer. But in fact, there was more years of his life deducted because of the words that Pharaoh said. So commentators say that because of the fact that Yaakov had looked so bad that prompted Pharaoh to even ask him this question, as a result, more years were taken off of his life. And many commentators say that we learn by this that, a person should always, try to take care of themselves, to look young and not brokenhearted and distressed. And again, I have a lot of empathy for Yaakov Avinu on this, being somebody who's really gone to a very, very, very tough, I've had a very tough handed to me in this life. So, for me, there's a lot for me to learn in this Parsha. So I kind of want to talk about, a little bit of the physical aspect, because, saying you should look cheerful and not brokenhearted and distressed is a lot easier said than done. And unless you've gone to this rodeo, I'm telling you, there's few people who are going to take the advice of somebody who's not gone through this rodeo. And I'm not saying, look, I'm the authority on it. I'm really not saying that. But what I'm saying is, I find it much more easier to, I remember when I was like really ill, and I remember the doctor saying, you have to find other survivors. And this is kind of like the same thing. It's that same mentality. When you're going down in that plane, there comes a point where you say, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I want better for my life. I don't think that anyone who's battling a depression wants to be in that state. I mean, that's just, if you ask anyone, of course they're not going to say, I want to be like this all day. I want to have a gloomy cloud over my head all day. Yet we can find ourselves in that if you've been through this rodeo. So, there's no substitute for working on your midot. There's none. But, also this, like we said, it has to be dealt with a two-part problem. One is the physical, nutritional needs that, your brain needs and to maintain this, brain chemistry that if it's off can really exacerbate, very dramatic and inappropriate reactions. And I think, if you have this kind of brain chemistry, that you're very prone to really exacerbating even the smallest things that could really become, there's a saying, don't make a mountain out of a molehill. And sometimes, listen, I even had to be honest with myself. There's times where I think, that I had reactions that were way inappropriate to what the situation was. And I think a lot of that was getting myself stuck in this rut of saying, this isn't fair, et cetera, and just not allowing myself to move on of it. So what can we do to support nutritionally, your body's ability to really kind of heal and nourish that brain chemistry while you are working on your midot? Now, granted, depending on where you're kind of holding on all of this or your situation, and I highly encourage, if you don't have a Rav, please, and, you have to really find a Rav who really understands this problem. You really do. You have to find a Rav that really understands. I remember when I was going through, fixing my midot, and I found a lot of comfort in the works of Rabbi Nachman. Just phenomenal, right? Like, who doesn't love the breast livers, right? They're always happy. Like, I don't even know if it's like possible to be in a dark place with the breast livers, because I mean, they should be like Chabad. They should be like, everywhere there's a Chabad, there should be a breast liver. Like, they should just go hand in hand, because, they have so much simcha and joy, right? Like, it's so infectious. But as far as like nutritionally, and some of the things that I found in my research that are really beneficial to kind of helping people is, first of all, and if you were on Kosher 2.0, I'm going to say a statement, and it's like the return of the worst words I think most of the viewers, like the listeners, like heard, which is gluten is not your friend. And there's no such thing as gluten-free, gluten-free oatmeal. Like, there's no such thing as that. It just, do the research. It just doesn't exist. No gluten. All right? You want to cut off all your sugars, even your natural sugars. All right. So you're like veggies, eggs, meats. You're almost like paleo in a way, until your brain is starting to like heal and really, stabilize. All right. The eggs are really good. Do the research. Eggs are really good for building that fatty substance in the brain called myelin. When this whole push to get rid of, first of all, cholesterol is not as bad as you think. I believe I also did a series on that. But again, cholesterol is not the enemy that you think it is. It's so important that your body makes it. Do the research on it. If you have high cholesterol levels, it's because there's something going wrong in the body, and cholesterol has to come out and fix it. And so until you address the problem, the cholesterol is going to keep rising. And what happens is you don't have enough of the good stuff either to flush it out of the system. So it builds and builds and builds until you get these clogged arteries. Trust me when I tell you, on the naturopath side, things just make a whole lot of sense, okay? So now you want, like I've told you before, you want to make sure that you're getting those digestive enzymes in there. You want to make sure, especially if you have absorption problems, you have gluten intolerance, a lot of people have it, whether they know it or not, and you're not absorbing the nutrients, okay? So you want to make sure that you have like a liquid kind of vitamin in there. You want to get a liquid mineral. There's 60 minerals. You need to pick a mineral that is just about as complete as they come. And also, you want to make sure that you have your EFAs, your essential fatty acids. So that's omega-3, 6, and 9. And you want to have a DHA in there to kind of help with the brain. You want to have your selenium in there, your calcium, your magnesium. That's in addition to even your mineral supplementation. Another thing that's very, helpful is your MSM and glucosamine. That kind of helps with any potential osteoporosis, especially in the skull. That's another series that we did, and I believe that one is also on YouTube if you want to check that out. And you can kind of, get an idea why it's so important to have this. Now, when you're trying to kind of balance out the emotions, there's some herbs that are really good that have been really time tested and really effective, such as St. John's wort, and also L-theanine is a really good thing to have. Listen, I have L-theanine in my home, even if I'm not in a state of frenzy and Baruch Hashem, like those episodes are like really in the rear view of my mirror because there's been a lot of hard work to deal with all these problems. L-theanine is really great if you've ever had issues where your mind is racing, especially at night. Like, you ever wake up at 3 a.m. and you have this to-do list, you're running down and you're just like, oh my gosh, it's 3 o'clock. I want to go to bed. I don't want to, think about this. I got to get up, in a few hours. This is really good to kind of tune that down. It really just quiets the brain. And sometimes you can get them in these blends. And they have something called PABA, which is like PABA, which are really great in giving out these really calming brainwave signals to the brain, which really just allows it to relax. It doesn't leave you dopey feeling or, number one rule I would tell you, okay? If you're on medication, do not stop cold turkey. Do not stop cold turkey. You cannot, whenever somebody starts to change dosages or they quit a dosage, you can really get yourself into some problems. So you want to make sure that you're working, in tandem with your, if you're seeing a professional, because obviously you wouldn't be getting these medications without a professional, you want to make sure that you're keeping this person in the loop. And you want to make sure, to discuss when is the right time to start looking at a reduction schedule. And I personally, I don't know, unless you've been doing a very strict diet or anything like that protocol for a few months, I don't know that it would be smart to even have that conversation of a reduction schedule. But that's really between the individual and their healthcare provider. But I got to tell you, I would not be just doing this alone. And in general, this whole ordeal, you really, you do need a community. It takes a village to really help pull someone out. Sometimes I think, we've dug ourselves in such a deep ditch that it takes, a village to kind of help you get out of it. And, so you really want to make sure that you are, that you have to find people that you can trust to confide in. That's one. You have to find a Rav that has kind of been to this rodeo. That's two. And if you know somebody that's going through this, really, this isn't just something I think that you could just will your way out of. It really isn't, like I said, unless you've been to this rodeo, you just can't just, I think, there's a lot of work that gets involved in here, and sometimes it's just all you can do. It's not even day by day. It's not even hour by hour. Sometimes it's just second by second. It really gets that desperate for some people. And if you've ever been there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So really, I encourage you, it is possible. It is possible to get out. I myself thought years ago that I could never say such a statement, but it is possible to get yourself to the other end. Make sure you're keeping up with your exercise. You want to make sure you're flushing out toxins. I also did, something about a detox. That's something I just wouldn't go straight into. And if you've heard my detox broadcast, you understand why. You want to be real smart, okay? And everybody's got a lot of opinions on everything. Know that Hashem is with you. He's so with you. He's so with you. And I know even Yaakov Avinu, he's like really in our corner, just, really begging Hashem on our behalf. He really is. Like he really has been through it, right? I mean, think of everything that he's been through. Think of everything that he's been through. So much empathy, really so much empathy, so much we can learn from him. And, thank God he got a great reward for everything he's been through. What a great reward that really from the beginning of almost time until now, he's still earning that reward. And it's so well deserved. And I know it's hard. A lot of people say a lot of nice things, like you're such a great, neshama, you have a high neshama. And, when you're in the throes of it, it's very hard for those words to even make sense or to even digest those words, because all you can see is the negative. But I got to tell you, every Yidden, they're compared to stars. Stars shine brightest in the dark. Okay? So know that you have the greatest potential. There's a very big saying that says the pendulum swings both ways. If your darkness is that great, you have no idea how great the light is. And I encourage all of you to move towards that light. But you have to do the work. You cannot expect that just it will happen. It does not happen unless you do the work. It's like buying an exercise video and saying, now I will lose 20 pounds, yet I've never done the workout. This is just as important. You have to make sure that you're putting in the work. When you're going into these shears, I say this all the time, don't just listen, apply it, see what there is that you can put into practice. And don't kid yourself where the line is. The line is where it is. Even if you're not hitting it, don't fool yourself where the line is. It's something to work towards. All of us are working towards it. None of us are perfect. And I think that people, I think especially in this day and age with everything that's going on with everyone, I think people, they just genuinely appreciate sincerity, right? Nobody wants to be around a fake. Nobody wants to be around a fake. And, this is who I am. This is who I am. This is everything I've been through. And I just want to share that with you guys. Just my Kosher 2.0 perspective on this week's Parsha. And I hope that it's helpful. I hope that it helps one of you to really, say, I think I can do this again. I'm going to give it another shot. And remember that even the tzaddik falls 7 times. I believe in Hebrew it's translated as many times. So just know that, it's possible. It's possible to get to the other side. With Hashem's help, you're going to make it. And I hope to see you all at the finish line. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Thanks.